pull-on work boots are some of the most popular styles of work boots because they prevent stuff getting to the inside of your boots into your socks. They're super easy to take on and take off, no laces to get caught in anything or any machinery. But pull-on or slip-on work boots are some of the worst offenders of selling garbage to people who don't know any better that rely on these boots to make their living. So we bought 8 of the top pull-on work boots to run through all of our tests and cut them in half to really figure out who reigns supreme in the pull-on work boot world. So who are the contenders? Well, up first is the Georgia work boot. Georgia is really known in the work boot world for really affordable but high quality and traditionally made footwear. And this particular model is one of the most popular boots that you see on any work site, any ranch. And so what is this boot? Well, the brand is Georgia. The style is the Work Wedge Wellington. They weigh 1 pound, 10 ounces. They retail for the most affordable in the group at $180. They're made in the Dominican Republic. And the leather they use on this is actually really nice. It's one of my favorite leathers of the group because it's super thick at 2.8 millimeters thick, but it's really soft and malleable. It's a SPR full grain leather, which means it has barnyard protection. It's supposed to be more abrasion resistant. It's made specifically to be a work boot leather, and I like this leather a lot. You look at the cross section, plenty of grain left in it. Then on the inside of the boot, this is where you start to see some of the more affordable aspects of this boot. This is a pretty durable but more affordable lining. And this green material is just up through the shaft of the boot. In the vamp, it's a more softer cotton. Then you do actually have a dedicated heel counter on the inside, which is vital for one of these pull-on work boots because you're always gonna get a little heel slip throughout the entirety of the boot. And that back heel is what most people wear out first on all their boots. So we're gonna really focus on that. It's a fake fibrous leather, but it's pretty hard, so maybe not the best material. The outsole is their proprietary oil-resistant polyurethane wedge. This lasts a really long time. That's part of why it's so popular. You can see it's sewn through the toe to prevent delamination. You don't need really much of a shank in there because you've got the full contact all the way through. And you do have some traction on there, but it is fairly shallow. It's a pretty soft outsole at 40 Shore A, so it's not quite as soft as some where it's gonna wear out really quick, but it's not as hard as like a 70 Shore A, really hard work boot. So it's gonna wear down faster, but because it's polyurethane, it's a little bit harder, it should last a decently long time. And as for construction, this is a 360-degree Goodyear welt, meaning there's sewing and glue holding this boot together. And this is a synthetic welt, which to me is inferior to a leather welt because these are prone to splitting and cracking because they don't have that fiber structure on the inside. It says in the description it has a steel shank and a fiberboard lasting board. So initial impression of this boot is, it seems like there's a reason why people really love this boot for work. It's got all the basic features you need to make a high quality work boot, but more affordably made with the synthetic materials. And the way that Georgia positions this boot is these Georgia Boot Wedge Wellington work boots are highly durable and perfect for a farm or ranch or jobs where your boots are near harsh chemicals. Part of this can be attributed to the SPR full grain leather, which is able to resist caustic chemicals and barnyard acids. Compared to traditional leather, SPR leather has 3 times the strength and is able to resist abrasion 2.5 times better because of the way it has been tanned. So bold claims, we'll see when we get it cut in half. So now let's look at the next contender, which is Duradero. This boot has been on quite the journey with us because this is a pretty new company. We reviewed them and the boots were not great, but they do come with this free resole. And so I was like, okay, that's really intriguing, but the boots don't seem like they're up to the same quality. But then they revamped their entire line and improved everything. We cut one in half and it was pretty impressive. So I got hopes for this boot and the brand. So then what is this boot? Well, the brand is Duradero. The style is the new Omaha Unlined. They weigh 1 pound, 13 ounces. They retail for $199, so a little bit more than the Georgias, but you do get a free resole with the Duraderos that you don't get with the Georgia. These are also made in the Dominican Republic. And as for the specs, the leather is a really good leather. It's 2.3 millimeters thick. It's heavily saturated with oils and waxes to make it a little bit hardier for work. And because of that, it's a really maintenance-free leather. It's gonna last a really long time. It's a wax nubuck where they sand the surface lightly and put a heavy layer of wax on top. That's why you get all these color variations and this heavy pull-up, this almost sticky touch. On the inside, I like how it's unlined in the shaft because I just don't like linings in the shaft. I'd rather have the breathability and the abrasion resistance and not have as much bulk around my leg, but it does have a cotton canvas lining in the vamp, and at the heel, it looks like it's a suede leather heel counter, but it feels really, really thin, so we'll see how good or bad it is when we get it cut in half. But I can also feel that it's maybe not sewn well in there. They may have mis-sewn the heel counter a little bit. As for the outsole, this is a really soft outsole at 25 Shore A, also polyurethane. It's oil resistant, slip resistant, so it's gonna be a little bit softer than the Georgias and maybe a little less durable, but it is very soft and squishy. It's gonna be comfy. This is also a 360-degree welt. It also has a synthetic welt. This one has a removable insole, so if I pull this out, very standard insole, nothing really special about it, more on the cheap end. And then it looks like a more tan fiberboard underneath of the insole. And the way that Duradero positions this product is the new Omaha Unlined work boots are ideal for hard work, demanding days, and even dates. Available in medium, D, and wide 3E widths. Our 10-inch round toe pull-on wedge mock toes, this is not a mock toe, I got that wrong, have an exceptional toe box structure that makes our work boots stand out in the market. There's ample space in the toe box that prevents blisters, maintains air circulation, and allows you to wear thick or thin socks. Functionality and durability are at the core of our brand. So could be quite the contender for the series. You know, if it's quality through and you get that free resole, could be pretty good value. Next contender is the Justins. So Justin is more Western wear and Western workwear, so that's why this looks a little bit more Western. You got the little toe bug on there. And the quality has been hit and miss as far as we've seen with Justin, and they are more affordable. So we'll see about this boot with a little H2O. So the brand is Justin. The style is the Rush 11-inch waterproof. They weigh 1 pound, 10 ounces. They retail for $205. They're made in Cambodia. And this leather is a pretty nice leather. It's 1.8 millimeters thick, so a little on the thinner side. It's got a good amount of conditioning in it. I think they call it a full grain. Every one of these brands call it full grain, and they're rarely full grain. It means that whole grain is still intact, but this is clearly sanded down, so it's more of like a nubuck or a wax nubuck. Common mistake, not a big deal. And having a thinner leather in a work boot in the shaft makes sense if you have it lined, and especially if it's leather lining, but in the vamp, I was surprised to see it at 1.8 millimeters thick. That's more in the sneaker zone. And speaking of the lining, it's just a fabric lining. They say it's waterproof, and it's waterproof up to the ankle. It has a heel counter on the inside. It looks like up top of the heel counter is leather, but then underneath is like a really cheap, clearly, I don't even have to look at it. I can feel it's a cheap fake leather. And so that's just barely above having fabric backed as your heel counter. So not great. As for the outsole, this is a Vibram dual density outsole. This harder rubber that's on the bottom is a 60 Shore. The midsole is a lot softer to 30 Shore. So a good amount of squish without being overly squishy, but I was surprised at how flat this is. So it's not the most aggressive work boot. This might be more like a Western rancher work boot hybrid sole. And speaking of modern, this looks like it's a 360 Goodyear welt with a double row stitching, but it's cemented. So it's literally just glued together, and they put this fake stitch on there to make it look higher quality or look more traditional when it's clearly not. Pull out the insole, pretty decent ortholite insole. It's got dual density. It's got these little balls on the blue balls on the bottom here. One of the more popular brands in the industry for high quality open cell foam. And underneath, you can see that lining wraps all the way under, so it's probably waterproof all the way through the boot. And the way that Justin positions this product is durable and waterproof with flexible athletic construction. The 11-inch Stampede Rush waterproof is the perfect boot for a work day and beyond. The waterproof barley cowhide will keep your feet dry through the wet conditions, while the oil and slip resistant rubber outsole offers key traction where you need it most. Might not be looking good for this one. It's not on my top list of potentially really good boots, but we'll see. Our next contender is the Ariats. And Ariat's a pretty popular brand in the work boot world, especially the Western world. And they're popular because they're very comfortable, they're very affordable, they're easy to get, and they're dependable. You know if you get a pair of Ariats, they're not gonna be the most durable boots, but they're gonna be some of the most comfortable boots, and you know exactly what you're getting with Ariat. So what is this boot? Well, the brand is Ariat. The style is the Rebar Wedge pull-on. They weigh a little bit lighter at 1 pound, 6 ounces. Retail for $210. They're made in Mexico. And as for the leather, I do like this leather. It's 2.3 millimeters thick, so about what you'd expect from work boot leather. It does have a little pigment on top, but it's not enough that it really bothers me. You know, even when you scratch it, it doesn't really change the color that much, and it's a work boot leather at the end of the day. They say it's a full grain leather, but I doubt it. You know, it's because they put a big pigment on top, so usually that's not a sign of a full grain leather. Usually save full grain leathers for a full aniline finish where there's no pigment on top. But I really like how it's unlined in the shaft. You know, it's gonna be more breathable, all those things we talked about, and it's got an actual real leather heel counter on that spot that wears out fastest in pull and work boots. It looks like it's just a really cheap suede, but at least it's leather. And then through the vamp, you've got a fabric lining with a little bit of foam backing it. And if I pull out this insole, it's pretty nice closed cell foam. It's really squishy. It's the nicest one that I've seen so far that we've pulled out. And underneath is a more affordable looking pink fiberboard and I can tell it has a shank riveted to it. And there's a little pad at the forefoot to give it a little bit more squish, but a lot of times that sacrifices some of the durability. The outsole is their FLX foam, and it's a solid wedge. Comes at a 40 Shore A, so a little bit tougher, a little bit more durable. It is polyurethane as well. So out of the wedge soles we've seen, it's probably the most durable thus far. And it's just very traditional wedge all the way through. This boot is a true 360-degree Goodyear welt construction. It says it has a plastic shank, and the way they position this boot is classic work boot style, loaded with comfort. A rebar wedge has the cushioning support and stability you need for long days on hard surfaces. Built to perform in outdoor conditions like construction, concrete, masonry, agriculture, or landscaping work, but versatile enough for indoor jobs. So this is really affordable, it's dependable. This might be one of the dark horses of the race, but we'll see. This is the ND0, or the indestructible boot that Nick's made us. Then we made the ND1, one of the most popular boots that we've ever collaborated on. Then that led to the ND2, super sick. Then to honestly probably the most indestructible of the indestructible boots, the ND3, the most notorious of the ND line, the ND4, the jungle boot. And now finally, end capping it all after 5 years, the ND5, harking back to the original indestructible boot with double lineman patches, toe cap. And these boots are made by Nick's Boots, who are known for making some of the heaviest duty boots in the entire world. And there's only 100 pairs of the ND5s, get them before they're gone. So huge shout out to the Nick's crew for being able to do this for 5 years with us. Check out the ND5. Next to one of the cooler and more like modern, like space age, retro looking boots, I really like the look of this boot. This is made by Hawx. They're a pretty popular brand in the work boot world. You can get them at Boot Barn, and they seem to really push the limits of design and blending modern and old school with Western. So you can see it's got a little square toe. So what is this boot? Well, the brand is Hawx. The style is the Hawx Men's Radian Waterproof Western Work Boot Composite Toe. They weigh 2 pounds 7 ounces. Retail for $220. They're made in China. And I like this leather. You know, it's a really nice color. It has kind of an orangey hue to it. It's similar to these other leathers where it's a waxed nubuck. They say it's full grade. It's rarely ever actually full grade. Everyone gets that wrong. It's 2.2 millimeters thick, so a little on the thin side, but still within that work boot range, especially since it's lined. And the thing I really like about this is you've got this flex zone right here. So it allows the boot to be pretty tight around your instep because it can flex as you pull it on. So as your heel rounds that corner, this flexes out like that, giving you just a little bit extra room to give it a little bit snugger fit, which I really like. This boot is waterproof lined, and it's got a couple different lining materials up to the top of the shaft and then down through the vamp. Heel counter cover, it feels like fake leather, unfortunately. I bet it's fake leather, but it might be suede. It's hard to tell sometimes when it's really thin suede. Then if you look at the outsole, it's a pretty unique style of outsole where you've got the more modern way of doing the rubber outsole with the foam midsole, but what's unique about this is that midsole kind of creeps up the sidewall at your arch to give you a little extra arch support, and the Goodyear welt stops where that comes up, and it looks like it's got the harder midsole layer on top of the foam midsole, and the hardness of this outsole is about 65 Shore, so pretty tough. The midsole's around 30 Shore, so really squishy, and like I mentioned, it's a 320 degree Goodyear welt with this little chunk missing, but it's essentially a 360 Goodyear welt. It's a synthetic welt, or at least it looks synthetic. It might technically be part of the midsole, I'm not really sure, and I like boots that do this where they push the limits, they try to combine a bunch of different things, especially when they're innovating like this, where you got a little bit of that flex zone in there. So how do they position this boot? Well, they say the Hawx Men's Radian Waterproof Western Work Boot Composite Toe offers top-notch durability, comfort, and safety for workers in rugged environments. Crafted with precision, these boots ensure you stay protected while maintaining a classic Western style. Next up, one of the top brands in the work boot industry for a lot of years. Anytime you go to a job site, you're gonna probably see at least one Timberland on the job site. And just like the Hawx, it also has a little flex zone that I really like. And Timberland is simultaneously known for being a work boot brand, but also like a fashion brand. And that zone where they kind of meld together, they can produce some pretty terrible boots. So I'm hoping this is one of their more dedicated work boots. It looks pretty dedicated, but we'll see if it's like fashion Timberland or if it's actually work Timberland. So then what is this boot? Well, the brand is Timberland. The style is the men's true grit pull-on composite toe waterproof work boot. They weigh 2 pounds 6 ounces. They retail for $235. They're made in Bangladesh. And like I said, I really like this boot. You've got that little flex zone similar to the Hawx. It's a pretty nice leather, 2.5 millimeters thick. It's a wax nubuck. I don't think they called it a full grain, so maybe one brand got it right. It feels pretty saturated with waxes and oils. It's very similar actually to the Duradero leather. You can see how similar it looks and how it's got that similar pull-up effect when you bend the leather like that. I think the Duradero is a little bit more conditioned and waxed, but this is clearly a decent work boot leather. And they also say it's a waterproof leather. So we'll see when we do the waterproof test, because sometimes they say these leathers are waterproof and the water immediately seeps into it, and it's like, well, that's not true. So we'll see when we do the little waterproof test. And very similar to the Hawx again, they've got this two-stage lining with basically the same color and similar fabrics all the way through. And then the heel counter feels like another fake leather, unfortunately. When I notice when I put these on, there's a really hard spot right here where there's something overlapping right there that really pinches and puts a high pressure point on your heel. And so I've got some concerns about how well thought out this design was. If you look at the outsole, they call this it's a TPU lug, which this feels like rubber. So we'll see. It is sewn through the toe, which I really like. It's a nice little thing that prevents one of the biggest fail points in these boots where you kick your toe, your boot too much and it delaminates and your boots are screwed. And it's a pretty hard outsole. It comes at 70 Shore A, which is I think the hardest that we've seen so far. The midsole is really soft at 30 Shore A. And once again, it looks very similar to the Hawx. Are they built in the same country? And this is also a 360 degree Goodyear welt, at least what it looks like. I do like this little prise spot at the heel where you can pry your boots off. So there's some attributes to this that might make this a really good work boot, but it also might just be like a cheap Timberland. But the way Timberland positions this is our true grit work boot features a premium Timberland leather upper for ultimate comfort, waterproof protection, and Western inspired styling that look just as good at home on the ranch as on industrial job sites. The slip resistant TPU lug, so it is TPU. TPU lug outsole helps keep you grounded, and we've added an anti-fatigue technology footbed for shock absorption and energy return. What does that look like? It's just a classic Timberland insole, actually dual density. They're pretty nice though, I like these insoles. The really weird one though, I think I forgot to even mention it. It's this one. This one's nuts. It's like a quadruple density. You can see it's got like the pad in the heel. It's got a pad there, a little gel there. This one's weird. I actually thought that was this insole. Exospine technology that offers enhanced durability and lightweight TPU construction for lasting structure. Allows you to kick off your boots. Our breathable moisture wicking lining is made of Rebar 50% recycled plastic. So we'll see about the Timberlands. I'm not convinced on the Timberlands quite yet. And then to the second to last contender, and one of the bigger brands that's popped up since this direct-to-consumer style of business model, Tecovas. And they're mostly known for making more non-work boots, cowboy boots, like little Chelsea boots with a heavy Western style. But recently they got into the work boot world. And so we'll see what they can really do. And I'm already intrigued because it looks like a nice leather that's got a really pointy Western style steel toe. So does Tecovas's value transition over to work, or are they just a style brand? That's what we're gonna figure out. So what is this boot? The brand is Tecovas. The style is a long haul waterproof roper composite toe work boot. They weigh 2 pounds 3 ounces. They retail for $245 and they're made in Vietnam. And this is probably the nicest leather out of all the ones that we're doing today, because this is more of what you'd see in casual footwear, like higher quality, less workwear boots, because it's got this really nice finish on top. This is probably the only real full grain out of the bunch. Has a good pull-up effect, as you can see there. It's a little bit on the thin side, but still within that work boot range at 2 millimeters thick. To me, the leather alone makes me think this is a little bit of a work plus casual hybrid, less of a dedicated work boot. I really like these metal grommets though. This is something that none of the other boots have that I think is really cool. Just heavy metal grommets that you can just really yank on. It gives it a more industrial kind of look. I like it. As for the lining, you got leather up through the shaft of the boot, and then a fabric lining through the vamp and the heel. And as for the actual heel counter, it feels again like another fake leather. I don't know how all these boots have fake leather. Insole, pretty basic. I think it looks like an Ortholite. It's just open cell foam, single layer foam. But you see how pretty pointy little boots, you know, very pointy. Compare that to this ridiculous, crazy Hawx insole. You know, you can see it's even thinner than that, and they both are safety toes. So keep that in mind with the Tecovas. I think they have some other models that are not the really pointy toe, but this is the most traditional looking cowboy shape while still having a safety toe that I've ever seen, which is a benefit in and of itself. As for the outsole, this is a really nice outsole. Looking at all these, probably the most work ready, because I really like that this is a dual density wedge sole, where you've got the softer 35 Shore foam throughout the heel, and then the skin throughout the majority of the wear area on the bottom here is a 70 Shore rubber sewn through the toe, and then that rubber is all the way through the toe. And so you've got all that wear protection before you get into the softer foam. Sometimes you'll see where here in the heel they'll have that additional rubber too to prevent wear. But out of all the wedge soles, this is probably the most durable. The construction is a 360 Goodyear welt, a synthetic welt as well, which is, you know, you're starting to get to this price range where you'd maybe hope for a leather welt, but the next contender is more expensive and also has a synthetic welt. So kind of how it is with work boots. So how do they position this? Is it a work boot? Is it a half work, half style? Is it a style boot? Like, what is this boot? Well, they say versatile with a wedge sole. This roper style work boot is perfect indoor outdoor boot for everything from warehouse and factory floors to muddy construction sites and whatever you get up to after your shift ends. A dual density cushion outsole, our own energy return total energy command TEC insole system. Okay, it's just one layer of foam. Everyone throws all the BS in the insoles, to be fair. Removable cushion footbed leaves nothing on the table by way of comfort. Its deep lug muck off tread repels crud and debris in an oil and slip resistant and breathable waterproof system made with specially treated leathers will keep your feet dry. Looks like it's clearly supposed to be a work boot. It's supposed to look good too. And then for our final contender, the most expensive out of all of them, the Thorogood. And Thorogood, out of any of these brands, you would probably see Thorogood the most on job sites. From anything from their mock toe boots to their pull-on boots to their more modern Genesis boot that they just released, really combining the traditional stuff with the modern stuff, because Thorogood is mostly known for making work style, traditional heritage style work boots that are really high quality, very comfortable, and blend the perfect balance of traditional materials with modern materials and traditional techniques. And I'll show you what I mean when we get it cut in half. So what is this boot? Well, the brand is Thorogood. The style is the American Heritage 11-inch tobacco pull-on Wellington. They weigh 1 pound 15 ounces. They retail for the most expensive at $280, but they're the only ones that are made in the United States and made from globally sourced components. So that's a big part of where you get that increase in price, as they're made in the United States. This leather is also probably my most favorite. I love this leather. It's a really nice tobacco leather. It has beautiful pull up when you bend it and crease it. It just has a really nice texture to it. I think this might be the only full grain leather, or it's probably the closest to a full grain leather, but even this, I feel like it might be sanded a little bit. It's really soft and malleable. It's really heavily conditioned. It's really thick at 3 millimeters thick. This is for sure my favorite leather, actually. now that I'm thinking about it. And even better, it's completely unlined through the shaft of the boot, so it's not gonna stink, it's not gonna have any parts that wear out, it's gonna be more breathable, a little bit lighter, a little cooler, and it has this little back heel stay that keeps the structure of the boot all the way almost to the top of the boot, and it's leather, fortunately. And then at the heel, is the heel counter leather? I can't honestly tell right now if it's leather or not. I think it's a suede leather, but we'll see when we get it cut in half. If I pull out the insole, it's the classic Thorogood insole with the closed cell foam and this gel foam that's really squishy and durable. And underneath, it looks like it's built just like the rest of the Thorogoods that have that pour-on foam and then the fiberboard underneath, and it's a true Goodyear welt construction. That's kind of what I meant by the traditional techniques with modern materials that are focused on comfort and durability instead of just durability. The outsole is a really nice outsole that a lot of other brands use. It's made by Meramec. It's their max wear wedge. It's polyurethane, and this is one of the more durable outsoles. This is not dual density like we saw with the Tecovas, but because it's that polyurethane and Meramec is really good at making these durable wedges, it might rival the Tecovas, but I still maybe give Tecovas the edge. It's surprisingly hard at 60 Shore A. You know, it's probably from 50 to 60 Shore A, so that's another big reason why it's durable, because it's not this really, really soft 30 Shore A foam that we saw in the Duraderos. So it's gonna be significantly more durable, but maybe not quite as squishy. And that's why I think Thorogood puts in that really soft insole and that pour-on foam and balancing out the durability with comfort. And for the construction, 360 Goodyear welt construction, synthetic welt. So none of these boots had a real leather welt, and all of them are under 300 bucks, so it's kind of what you expect. But I was hoping one of them had a leather welt. And the way that Thorogood positions this is when you need a great work boot that gives you the comfort you need to get the job done, our American Heritage 11-inch tobacco pull-on Wellington boot gives you what you need. They're made with our Maxwear wedge outsole, which cushions every step and gives you added slip resistance. Plus, the ease of these slip-on boots mean you don't have to strain your lower back first thing in the morning by bending over to lace up. They added shock protection at the heel and the ball of the foot to keep you energized even when working on hard surfaces, while the composite shank gives you flexible support. Made with a full grain, so they also say it's full grain leather. This is probably the most closest to full grain. I don't know if it is for sure. It's the closest to full grain. It's hard to say if it is. I don't think it is technically an untouched surface. The Thorogood boots are meticulously crafted using top quality American leathers, ensuring both style and durability that can withstand the rigorous demands of today's job sites. And now to a quick overlay of the insoles, just to show you from the most narrow all the way up to the widest. Obviously some have a steel toe and some don't, but just to give you that information, I think it's still valuable. As for which ones have shanks and which don't, here's what they say on their sites. And that is all the contenders and some basic information. And now we get to go to the fun part, which is the test, starting with the upper puncture and starting at the absolute worst for Ariat, punctured through at 52 pounds, then Timberland at 66 pounds, then Duradero at 77, Tecovas at 81, Justin at 96, Hawx at 105, George at 132, Thorogood at 157, winning out at 157 pounds. Good leather, closest to full grain. I think this might be one of the only true American tan leathers, because I think Seidel makes this leather for Thorogood. So impressive results, I like it. What about the outsole puncture? Once again, Ariat suffered a little bit at 55 pounds, then Timberland again suffering at 76 pounds, Georgia punctured through at 86 pounds, Justin at 91, Tecovas at 91 pounds, Duradero at 95 pounds, then to the heavy hitters at Thorogood at 140 pounds, Hawx at 180 pounds with the winner. So whatever's going on with this whole outsole thing combination, that's pretty tough, clearly. Then to our new Abrasion Test. We're finally upgrading all of our testing equipment. We got 2 new testing equipment, pieces of equipment on the way, and the Abrasion Test is so sick. And it gives you real world data that actually works, and it's vastly different on how they perform too, because the absolute worst performance was the Tecovas at 3,200 strokes that tied with Justin at 3,200 strokes. So this might be a little bit more of a dress leather and less of a work boot leather, but I was surprised at Justin. Pretty miserable, but it is, remember, really thin. I think it's quite a bit thinner than the rest. So not too super surprising, because the Tecovas is a little bit more dress and casual oriented, and then the Justin leather was really, really thin. So that checks out. Then we jumped to nearly double the strokes at 6,000 strokes. I honestly thought this would have performed better. You know, as all the other test results were really good with the leather, but the abrasion resistance, not great on the Thorogoods. Then it goes to Timberland at 11,000 strokes, Duradero at 21,000 strokes, Ariat at 25,000 strokes, Hawx at 30,000 strokes, and number one, the one leather that was specifically designed for work, for barnyard, that has all those little things in it, 45,000 strokes to get through the Georgia leather, compared to 3,000 strokes with some of the other ones. Keep in mind, we're still getting that machine dialed in, so that's a huge difference. So it might have been run a little bit wrong. We'll run it again and just double check. Impressive results for Georgia either way. And then to more of the comfort tests with the drop test, starting with the ball drop test, and who performed worse. Duradero, 10.5 inches, and then Tecovas at 11.5, tied with Timberland 11.5. Then next to Georgia at 12 inches, which is tied at Justin with 12 inches, and Thorogood at 12 inches. inches, a little three-way tie. And then Ariat at 13 inches, and the most response is the Hawx, just edging out Ariat by 0.2 inches at 13.2. Then to the more impact, the heavier bar drop test. Once again, Duradero at the bottom at 3 inches, Justin at 4, Timberland at 4 as well, Thorogood at 4.5, Hawx at 5 3/4, tied with Tecovas at 5 3/4, Georgia at 6 inches, and then Ariat number 1 at 7.5 inches. Pretty impressive. Then to the flame test, where we held the lighter for 10 seconds, equal distance apart on all the different leathers. Performing worst was Ariat, then Thorogood, surprisingly. I thought Thorogood leather performed better in a couple of these. Then Justin, Georgia, Duradero, Hawx, Tecovas, and the winner, surprisingly, Timberland. Then to one of my favorite tests, the Flamethrower Test. We don't get to do it very often because it makes a mess, but it's really valuable for some of these boots where you're comparing a more synthetic and leather boot compared to a more full leather boot. Because there's a lot of jobs where you're around flames, so who performed the absolute worst? Hawx. Too many synthetics in here, and it just completely disintegrated, melted, and it was not self-extinguishing because of all the different materials. Not great results, unfortunately. And then next worst was similar build, you know, synthetic and leather, was the Timberlands. Basically performed the same. The backstay did pretty well structured, but the leather really curled up, and all the synthetics on the inside and all the other little bits that were synthetics, like this little flex point, failed pretty easily. Then the first full leather boot that failed was the Ariat. I think it's just a little bit cheaper leather. Didn't have nearly as much oil and conditioner on there, so it really shriveled up very fast because it wasn't conditioned and waxed at all, like the Tecovas was. And you can see just the difference in how this seems to keep its shape a little bit better than these really dry leathers. You know, this is now really stiff and crinkly, and I can like almost break it in half, where this still has some flexibility to it. So that's why even on a more dressed leather, it's going to perform better with flames and over the long term because it has all that oil and conditioner worked into the leather. Then, no surprise, Justin was probably the worst after that, just with all the stitching and stuff. It's a little bit more Western, so it had some more fail points in it. Next was the Duradero, and this leather still performed really well, but some of the seams started popping and failing on it, and this really soft outsole failed pretty quickly and really started to lose its shape. But honestly, not bad results. Then the number 2, I honestly thought Georgia was gonna be number 1, but technically we're gonna call this one number 2. I think you could switch 1 or 2, even like 3 around. This, you know, it's somewhat subjective. You can see how much better this leather performed, it being an actual work boot leather specifically designed for all these different things you're gonna run into with work. Performed really, really well. And even this really burnt leather, it's still not as hard and crinkly as some of the cheaper leathers. But I think the reason why I didn't take number 1 is it's just not as heavily conditioned and waxed and oiled like some of these other boots. And so number 1, back from the grave, Thorogood finally performed better. You know, it's starting to lose a little bit of hope in this leather, but like I said, this one has a lot more oils and waxes worked into it, and it resisted the flames really well. The stitching did really well, and I think pretty easily we count this one as number 1, because look at the inside, it also looks really good. And then to the waterproof test, who was the absolute worst? Ariat. Water came through pretty quick. I think it's also because this leather is so dry, it doesn't have that oil to prevent the water from seeping through. So I think that's why it didn't perform very great, but it's also not a waterproof boot. Next was the Thorogood. Even though this does have that conditioning and oil into it, it still seeped through some of these bigger seams. And once again, this is not a waterproof boot, and it's unlined. Then very similar story with the Duradero, same reasons, same thing all the way through. Then very comparable as the Duradero for the same reasons, and honestly, it's so close you could switch these. Next was Georgia, then to the Justins, and then surprisingly, the Hawx did really, really well, even with these like little gorings and little flex points and stuff, but not quite as good as, once again, another surprise. The Tecovas did really, really well, but the biggest surprise of all, the Timberlands, not been great test results, but waterproof test did really, really well. And it's the highest waterproofness. It's got the best waterproof lining. It stayed the most waterproof all the way through. So at least Timberland got something. Then we ran the steel toe test to test the steel toes, and just to show you the difference between why you maybe want a steel toe compared to not having a steel toe. Here's your quick results. So that should be pretty much everything you need to know about these boots, or you can know about these boots before you cut them in half. So let's cut every single one of these in half. Usually in these kind of series, we cut them in half for individual videos, then we do a compilation video, but we're risking it all for this time. It's like over $2,000 of boots with taxes and shipping and everything, cut in half in one video. Let's do it. Tough. Okay, we got them all cut in half. We only got one side because we burned the other half, but this is one of the most expensive videos we've ever done. So please support us wherever you can. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. And a lot of this is due to your guys' support of the channel, but especially our handmade leather goods we make right here in this shop, our collaborations that we work with some of the top brands in the world. And it's all due to your guys' support of that we're able to cut apart $2,000 worth of footwear in one single video. So now, let's see what's inside all these kickers. Starting with the Ariat. It's a Thorogood. Georgia. Duradero. Hawx with the wackiest insole of all time. I think it's nuts. Justin. Tecovas. Timberland. So what's inside the Ariat? You got your classic fiberboard, but you do have this little softer spot here, which you can make more comfortable, but less durable. Compressed cardboard, you got a nylon or synthetic shank, and this is actually leather in the heel. So pretty good, especially for the price. Then you look at the Thorogood, classic Thorogood construction, I love it. Actual real cork filling fiberglass shank, that pink fiberboard that's high quality, pour on, and then you do actually get an extra little squish in the heel, which is not in most Thorogoods. And fortunately, it is leather. I thought this was maybe fake leather, but thank the boot gods that that's real leather. So very good from Thorogood. I was a little worried there. Georgia, here's why these are so popular. Very simple construction, that high quality pink fiberboard, shank on the inside, just a little bit of foam filling, big squishy insole. I just wish this was a little bit more removable. You can still remove it, but it chunks apart. Now you can see why at this price point, this boot is so popular, because it's very classically built, high quality and durable materials, no fluff, just work oriented through and through. Duradero, a lot better than the first time we reviewed them. It's got a fiberglass shank. It's actually built really, really similar to the Thorogood. The Thorogoods just have a little bit better feeling on the inside, better components as leather, whereas the Duraderos, this is actually leather. I didn't think it was, but on this particular boot, you can see it wasn't sewn correctly, and you got a little flaw there that I think Duradero would be more than happy to replace. If you do get one of these, check it, just in case. Then to Hawx, this thing is wacky. You've got the shank on the inside, that softer midsole, that harder outsole. You've got a puncture-resistant looking material as the filler for the Goodyear welt, a fiberboard, a little bit of foam on top, the waterproof lining, and then look at this thing. This thing is nuts. You got a big patch of really soft foam. You've got like a harder foam, but then the softer foam that sweeps into this gel material, and it's like kind of dual layered, and I don't know, it's very, very squishy and comfy, but I've just never seen an insole quite like that. This whole boot is really pushing the limits on everything. And as for the heel counter, is it leather? I'm gonna burn it to see, I can't tell. Is the heel counter leather? Yep, that is not real leather. Dang it, I was hoping it was real leather. Fake leather in the heel counter. They've really pushed the limits on it, and this, you can just see from the inside how drastically different this more modern style is compared to more traditional. And that's why these are so freaking comfy too. Then Justin, very similar to the Hawx, just like a cheaper version of it. Similar construction on the inside, but you can see it really is that fake Goodyear welt. Can I rip this boot apart? Oh, dang it, Justin. I want Justin to make good stuff. They just, every time we review them, I can literally tear their boots apart by hand. I'm not gonna tear the whole thing apart because the other half's burnt. We gotta have some footage for the rest of the video, but that was pretty easy to tear apart. Then to this boot that I thought was maybe the most old school and traditional, but it's really, really built up on the inside. It's got the harder midsole and then a really soft, and the crazy thing about this foam, they don't advertise this, but this looks just like Boost foam. It has like the little cells on the inside. I think that's like an equivalent to Boost foam inside of a pull-on work boot. You got that supportive compressed cardboard, you got the fiberglass shank, another structured material. It's kind of like a fiberboard, but it's more woven than fiberboard. Then you got foam on top of that, and then another insole material. And so this thing is stacked up. Like, it's definitely built up for work. And you can see how high that arch is compared to some of these other boots as well. This boot is a unique one too, because it really does blend the more stylish and more dress-oriented or casual-oriented with the work. And if this leather would have performed a little bit better, it was a little thicker, some of these things are better, this would be a heck of a boot. But I think honestly, this is kind of that work/style that you can beat these up and shine them up, do whatever you want in them. Pretty impressed with Tecovas. And finally, to maybe the stinker of the whole series, this whole video, Timberland. It's built really similar to the Tecovas and to, you know, the Hawx and the Justin, it's just not done as well. You know, it's a little bit sloppier, it's got more filler material, but not as bad as I thought on the inside for Timberland, to be honest. So now we've seen every single component inside and out. How would I rank these from worst to best? Justin, unfortunately, I gotta put you at last. It just fell short in a lot of ways, and it's cemented construction, I could tear it apart, cheaper materials, still fairly pricey. Last place for Justin, sorry Justin. Then the second to last place, I'm putting the Timberland. Similar story, it almost works really well, but it just failed really hard in a few ways, and there's just boots that do it better that are similarly built, so second to last place. Then above that, I'd probably go Ariat. It performed well in a lot of spots, but fell short in a few spots and didn't really shine in any ways that would make me put it above anything else. Like, for instance, next above that, I'm gonna put the Georgias. Very similar construction, they performed similar, but Georgia just excelled in a few ways above and beyond the rest of the boots, but fell short in a few other ways, so that's why I'm putting it down here. But this, don't get me wrong, this is still one of the top work boots, and there's a clear reason why it's one of the top work boots, and it's very affordable. Then next, I'd probably put the Tecovas. You know, I think this boot shines really well. It's probably the best looking, traditional looking boot. It has the fanciest, highest quality leather, but maybe it's not as specifically best for work, but it's maybe the nicest leather. Then I'd put Duradero, not counting the free resole, just looking at this specific boot compared to the rest of them. It's built really similar to the Thorogood, but the Thorogood just has some better components. It's built similar to the Georgias, but the Georgias have a little bit less quality materials than the Duraderos, so that's why I'm putting Duradero where it's at. And then above that, the number 2 spot, who is it? I'm going with Hawx. I think this boot is really innovative. It pushes a lot of boundaries. It's really unique. It looks unique. I like when brands go for it, and when it works really well. But, you know, there's just so many more things in here. There's more opportunity for failure. And so that's why I put Thorogood as number 1. It's just simpler, it's more traditional, but it still has some of these modern features. To me, this is a more dependable, more reliable, simpler, less points of failure, and that's why I put it above the Hawx. But if you value the more modern work boots with some of the features, you could easily put this as number 1. But just for me personally, I'm putting Thorogood number 1. But the Thorogoods are also almost $300. They're made in the United States, and to a lot of people, it doesn't matter how good the quality is, it depends on the price. And so what about value? Per dollar spent, how would I rank these from worst to best? Probably worst per dollar spent is probably the Timberlands. The Timberlands just did not do great across the board, and they're very expensive. Above that, I'd put the Tecovas. They are very expensive with good reason. You know, it's the fancy leather, all these things. It's just per dollar spent, it's not the best value. Then above that, you maybe would have thought I'd put this as the very last one, but these boots from Justin are really affordable, and so I still think you could rank it bottom. Then due to the expense, once again, I put Thorogood up here. Even though this is my favorite overall, it's almost 300 bucks, and per dollar spent, I don't think it's significantly better than some of the other boots. Like for instance, the Ariats is what I put above that. It's a lot cheaper, does a similar job, just doesn't do it as well, but per dollar spent, it makes sense to me. Then I would go Hawx for a lot of the reasons we talked about. And then number 2, this is tough, because I could go either way, because I think you could put Duradero as number 1, because you get that free resole. But on this specific boot, we saw some flaws on the inside, but just with the long history, the love from people that actually work in these boots all day, every day, I'm gonna put Georgia as number 1, per dollar spent, best value pull-on work boot out of these boots. Tally up all the scores, everything reviewed, from like the test down to how they rank in quality and value. How do they stack up? Well, last place, tied for last place, is Justin, and no surprise, Timberland. They just didn't do it. They're both more modern style pull-on work boots, but they didn't make them modern enough for me to think that I'd want a modern work boot over some more traditional ones. Like the Ariats, more traditional, but this just kind of fell short in a lot of ways and the points didn't stack up. I only ended up with 42 points, which was a similar story to Tecovas. Just, it's really cool. A lot of things worked well. It just didn't score well in all the tests at 47 points total. Next above that, just by 2 points, Duradero, 49 points. So pretty good showing for the new brand in Duradero. A lot of improvement. And then above that, a huge leap in points, all the way up to 60 points, the Thorogoods. I thought this was gonna be number 1. You know, I thought for sure this was gonna win across the board pretty easily, but it was beat out by 62 points with the Georgia. 62 points. This one just, I think it just performed well enough, like middle to upper parts on all the test results, slowly accumulated all the points, highest value boot, really cemented this as number 2. And then number 1, surprisingly, the Hawx boot. Through all the tests, it just performed really, really well across the board. And the thing I like about it is it's very boundary pushing. It's really innovative, very unique amongst all these other boots, and unique in how it looks and how it performs. So congratulations, Hawx. 63 points, the winner. But which is the most comfortable? I would probably say Hawx. I think these Hawx boots are freaking comfortable. Most durable, I would probably put the Thorogoods. What about boots to avoid? I would probably just avoid getting the Justins and the Timberlands. They just failed pretty miserably. And which boots should you consider buying? Basically everything but these two boots. If I had to choose one boot, what would I buy? If I was gonna work in these and I was gonna just do all my different kinds of work and I had to buy one boot to last me as long as possible, comfort, the look, balancing all the test results, what would I choose? Maybe no surprise, I'm going with Thorogoods. I love these boots. They look really good, they're clean, they're traditionally made. This boot just does it so well across the board. I want a pair of these right now. Look how sick these look. So out of all the boots, what three really shown well? Thorogood, clearly. Georgia, there's a reason why these are so popular, and now we know that reason. And Tecovas, you know, really pushing the limits, really high quality, but it's the first year they've ever done a work boot, and I think there's a lot of opportunity and room for growth. So these three boots, pretty impressive. Across the board, all pretty impressive except for Justin and Timberland, don't buy those. And all of these have different purposes and reasons, different styles, so I think you can go with any one of them and be happy with them. So thank you guys for watching this. Support it wherever you can. It's with $2,000 worth of footwear cut in half, just to show you exactly what you're spending your hard-earned money on. So give us a like, give us a subscribe. If you want to support us more, you can check out our handmade leather goods I designed that we make right here in this shop by me and my crew, or check out our collaborations that we've done this year that's really made all these new testing equipment, big $2,000 videos like this possible. Thank you guys for our support. I'll put links to all that below, and let me know which boot you would choose out of all these for your work, and thank you guys. See ya.